I added dungeons to Habit Slayer. Can you believe that? There's actual dungeons in a habit tracker. I can't really believe it either, but here we are, and in this devlog I'm very excited to show you how these dungeons actually work and what they look like. Now first, if you're new here, well, first of all, welcome. I'm really happy that you're here. My name is Darius and I built RuneScape inspired gamified apps and even games hopefully soon. And currently I'm working on an RPG habit tracker called Habit Slayer, which essentially gamifies the process of improving yourself through your habits using an RPG. And the latest thing that I've been working on for the past couple of weeks is of course all of the dungeons. So let me now show you what those dungeons actually look like and how do they work. So over here we have the home screen, the main screen of Habit Slayer. This is where all of your habits live, right? You can see a couple of habits here. I've showed this a bunch of times in these devlogs, but the dungeons, they live inside of this select combat screen here. When you go to this screen, you're going to see that now instead of monsters, which is what we had before, we had this before, instead of monsters, we now have dungeons, right? Because the whole point, the whole concept of Habit Slayer is that you're supposed to slay monsters, right? Just like in old school RuneScape, the Slayer skill, you're supposed to slay monsters while doing your habits. And previously, you could only do it using all of these monsters here, but now you can do it using dungeons. So you can see here, all of these dungeons, they start off very easy, right? Level 1, and then they progress naturally and become even stronger. And you can see here, every single dungeon has a bunch of monsters that you fight, because essentially dungeons are simply a collection of monsters and you fight each monster one by one, just like you would if you were fighting the monster normally. So for example, if I can go here to the Tomb of the Pharaoh, for example, this is what the dungeon screen looks like. Currently, this dungeon is locked because you do have to unlock the dungeons by completing the previous dungeon. So it gives you kind of a nice natural progression. And you can see here the monsters that we have to defeat inside of this dungeon. We have one skeleton mage, one ghoul, 2 mummies, and 2 shadow wraiths. And then over here, what I really like is we have all of this really cool artwork for every single dungeon, which brings a little bit more life into the game over here, because previously I found that it was quite lacking a lot. You didn't really have anything, so you had to use your imagination, but now you don't, because you can see here the actual Tomb of the Pharaoh. And then if I scroll down here, you have your usual statistics of how many times you did the dungeon, because you can do dungeons multiple times. And then you have the rewards that you will get for completing this dungeon, as well as the loot table. And this over here is the thing that I'm really excited about, because I added new items to the game because of dungeons. So not only can you now complete dungeons, which is cool in and of itself, but you also get unique rewards for doing so that you don't get in any other way inside of this game. For example, we now have XP tomes over here, which are simply books over here that give you XP in a selected attribute, right? You can see here, this one is going to give you 5000 XP in a chosen attribute. This is a dungeon exclusive, which means that you can't buy it from the market. You can't even buy it with real money. You have to actually do the dungeon to get this as a reward, which really gives you a strong incentive to actually participate in doing these dungeons. Because sure, you could previously, right, and you still can, you can go here to any monster and you can just directly fight the monster, right, independently of a dungeon. And if you do that, you will get the rewards from fighting the monster. You will get some of the draws from the loot table, depending on your RNG, but you won't get the specific things for the dungeon, like extra XP. So it's actually faster to level up if you do dungeons, because you get these XP tomes and you can essentially add XP to your attributes and help you level up faster. But that's not the only thing that I added. I also added dungeon exclusive cosmetic items, like for example here, this Pharaoh's crown. This is really, really cool. I worked a lot on this. I actually had this from a previous project that I did with these assets, and I just ported it over. This is the Pharaoh's crown, and this is how this looks. If it can work, it works now. Great. You can now look like an actual pharaoh, and this is really cool because once again, this is a dungeon exclusive, right? You can only get this through the dungeon, and the drop rate isn't even that high. It's 5%, which means that most likely you're going to have to do this dungeon multiple times to essentially farm this item here. So if you see any player with this Pharaoh's crown over here, you know that they farmed the dungeon, and it's basically a status upgrade for your character, which essentially makes your experience better inside of this game, right? And then you have all of these dungeons dungeons here. Some are free, right? There's a good chunk of them that are free. I tried to really find a nice balance between making some dungeons premium, right? To kind of give incentive for people to get premium, which is really the only way that I can fund the development of this application. But at the same time, I did not want to make everything premium. I still wanted to give you enough as a free user. And so you have a bunch of dungeons here. Again, all of these are locked because you have to progress from the previous one. The only premium ones are going to be labeled here as premium. These need to both be locked right by a previous dungeon, but also require you to have a premium subscription. And then they go all the way to, you can see here, the Black Citadel, which honestly, I don't really foresee many players actually defeating this dungeon because it really is difficult. So first of all, not only did I recently raise the level cap of the monsters by adding the Black Dragon here, which is now level 72, right? So to really defeat this monster, you need to be really strong, which means you need to have done your habits for a very long time, which is not an easy feat to do, right? So not only that, but now you have to defeat a Dark Demon, a Red Dragon, which is also very strong. It's not the strongest monster, but it's the second strongest, so that's still pretty strong. And you have to defeat all of them, and then you can get the rewards, which in this case are pretty significant. You're getting 40,000 coins, which is really a lot, considering that I believe no item that you can buy from the market is even worth 40,000 coins, but it will be in the future as I add more items. But also you get XP tomes over here, and this one you get 3 of them. So 3 XP tomes volume 5. These are the highest tier XP tomes. These give you 10,000 XP to a chosen attribute, and you get 3 of them, so that's 30,000 XP, which is pretty significant. And then you get what I think is my favorite item inside of this game over here, just because of how rare this actually is to get, right? I mean, you saw it's very difficult to get, and it drops at 5%, right? It is the dragon's head. So you can actually get the head of the dragon that you defeat. In this case, once again, the strongest dragon in the game. And this, I'm sorry, but just looks really, really cool. I really think that I popped up for this. I'm very proud of this. And this is what you get, right? This is equivalent to like any rare in any other game. For example, in old school RuneScape, this reminds me of the Halloween masks, right? That are super rare. If you essentially see somebody with this over here, you think, oh my god, that's really cool. This person like has a super rare item, and it's probably worth a lot. Now, of course, in Habit Slayer here, this is not an actual game, so there's no like in-world trading, right? All of these things have subjective value. They have like status points, if you will. But still, it's pretty cool, and I would really love to see somebody inside of the leaderboards over here with that dragon helm. And if nobody becomes that, I might, because I'm very close to actually appearing on the leaderboards, because I do play this game alongside every one of you, because of course I want to play my own game. This is really cool, and I also want to become better in my real life by doing my habits, right? So it's kind of a win-win. But yeah, these are the dungeons over here, and I'm super proud of them, and I'm super excited to see what you think about them when you actually get your hands on this app, if you haven't already, and when you actually start playing around and defeating some of these dungeons. Some other notable items that I want to showcase here, because not all the items are premium locked. So you saw, for example, this dungeon here, you can only do it as a premium user, which theoretically means that you can only get this dragon's head as a premium user. This is fine because this is a cosmetic. It has virtually no impact on your attributes whatsoever. So this just goes over anything that you might be wearing, like a diamond helmet, for example. So there's no issue there. But I wanted to also give you something as a free user to kind of make it worth it, right? To kind of give you a taste of what you could be getting with the full experience on this app. And with that, I created, I believe, 2 things in the Farmstead Rampage quest over here. Dungeon, rather, sorry, it's not a quest. You get the XP tome, but you also get a chef's hat. This is, of course, old school RuneScape inspired. That's one of the drops of the goblins, I believe, or even you can find it maybe through a quest if I'm not mistaken. But you get a nice little chef's hat over here, which is pretty cool because, again, this drops at a 5% drop rate, so it is a little bit more rare than any other item inside of this game. And also you have in the Darkwood Forest over here, you have something similar to the dragon helm, but this one is the bear helm, right? So it looks a little bit similar, right? But this is for a bear, and and the other one is for a dragon. Still, is very cool, and I would hope to see a lot of players using this because it's free and it's easily accessible, minus the drop rate, but this is a dungeon that is level 8, so you don't even have to be level 10 to attempt this dungeon, and you can farm for the bear helm, and then you have your cosmetic, and you can wear proudly when you eventually want to show your friends or even hopefully get on the leaderboards. Right, so these are the dungeons. Once again, I'm super proud of them. I think that they bring a lot of life to this game, and I think that they do it in a way that nicely integrates with everything that we had before. Because again, at the end of the day, dungeons are simply you fighting monsters sequentially one by one with extra rewards. It doesn't fundamentally change anything about the gameplay. It doesn't fundamentally change anything about you doing your habits because you progress a dungeon by doing your habits, right? And it essentially just neatly ties into the application as it was, while at the same time expanding it greatly in terms of world building. And of course, I forgot to show you how a dungeon actually looks like when you actually enter one. So let's do that. Let's come here. Let's enter the first dungeon, the sewer depths. So you can see here, this one, I have it unlocked, right? There's no other prerequisites, and I have to fight 3 rats. So we can start the dungeon. Now our dungeon is started. Now here you have the same little card that you had before with your active monster. It's just now there's a little faint background to indicate to you that you are in a dungeon, and you also see the dungeon name here. And then as usual, I can complete my habits and I deal damage to the monster. I defeat the monster, get my coins, get rewards for defeating the monster, but I also progressed over here the actual dungeon. You can see now I have 2 of 3, right? Then I can avoid the junk food, for example. I can come here, I can drink some water, right? And then I can do this one. I defeated the second rat, I got more rewards, right? And I just go on over and over again until I defeat the dungeon. Let me now come here and just clear all of my habit entries. I can do this because I'm in development mode. There's like a secret menu that I can use. So now all of my habits here are reset. And what I can now do is I can check them off again and see now I defeated the dungeon. And this is what this looks like. You have conquered sewer depths. I got all the coins, all the rewards for the dungeon. And then I got my XP tome over here, right? I can press continue. I got some achievements, complete your first dungeon, complete the sewer depths dungeon, right? And there you go, I'm good. And now I have unlocked the second dungeon over here, Farmstead Rampage. And I can now start farming this chef's hat and just keep going through the list. And that's it. That's what I've been working on very hard for the past couple of weeks, and I'm super excited that it's now out, it's released. So if you're watching this video, you can directly go and download the application, download the game. There's going to be links in the description down below. Once again, it's completely free, available for both iOS and Android. So feel free to go check it out, create your character, start some dungeons, and start progressing both in the RPG and also in your real life. So that's it for this devlog. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this devlog, please leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think about these dungeons here, because I'm really excited, and I promise you I will read every single comment that you guys write and answer them as well. With that being said, my name has been Darius Cosden. This is the Habit Slayer devlog, and I will see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.